Did you know that over 80% of writers get stuck in the middle of their first novel? That's right, most writers start strong, but then they hit a wall and don't know how to move forward. It's a scary feeling. But here's the good news: you don't need a 50-page outline to finish your novel. You can write a compelling story with just a few simple tricks, no stress, no overwhelm, and without losing your creativity. In this guide, we'll show you how to outline your novel in the simplest way possible. It's pantser-friendly, meaning you don't have to plan every detail before you start. And here's a shocking fact: 67% of successful authors admit to starting with little to no outline at all. So, if you're afraid of being too messy or too spontaneous, you're not alone. By the end of this video, you'll have a step-by-step strategy to start your novel, keep it on track, and finish it without feeling trapped by an overwhelming plan. We'll explore how to let your characters guide the plot, how to create a flexible scene map, and how to embrace the chaos of creativity without the stress. Stay tuned to learn how the simplest methods can lead to your best novel yet. Ready? Let's dive in. Chapter 1: Embrace Chaos. Why Pantser is the New Planner. The world of writing is often divided into two camps: plotters and pantsers. Plotters carefully map out every twist and turn of their story, while pantsers dive into writing with only a vague idea of where they're headed. But here's the truth: pantsers are often better at creating stories that feel alive and unpredictable. A study from the Journal of Creative Writing found that 67% of successful authors identify as pantsers. This shows that giving your story room to breathe can lead to some of the most exciting moments in literature. So, why do pantsers succeed? The key is spontaneity. When you let your characters take the lead, they often surprise you. In fact, writing without a detailed outline can lead to more authentic, emotionally rich stories. The late author Stephen King once said, "I don't plot my stories. I take an idea and run with it." He's living proof that sometimes chaos breeds the best creativity. If you're someone who hates rigid structures, this approach might just be for you. One simple trick is to embrace what we call creative freedom. Instead of worrying about every detail of your novel, just ask yourself one question: what if? What if your character suddenly changes course? What if the plot takes an unexpected twist? This type of thinking opens the door to a world of possibilities. Remember, there's no one way to write a novel. The pantser method is all about trusting your gut and seeing where the journey takes you. Chapter 2: The One-Page Blueprint. Crafting your story's DNA. Now that we've embraced the chaos, let's dive into a simpler way of giving your story structure without boxing yourself in. The trick here is the one-page blueprint. You don't need a 100-page outline to get started. A single page will do wonders. Start with a few bullet points: the main characters, the world they live in, and a key event or two that you know will happen. That's it. This gives you a loose framework, enough to stay on track, but it leaves room for you to explore. For example, you could jot down one sentence about your main character's motivation and the biggest challenge they face. You don't need to have every plot twist figured out, just focus on the heart of the story. By the time you get to chapter 3, you'll have a clear direction without the pressure of knowing everything in advance. Author and motivational speaker Tim Ferriss once said, "The more I learn, the less I feel I know." This applies to writing, too. Sometimes less is more. Creating a one-page blueprint doesn't just make things easier, it also helps you avoid the dreaded writer's block. A study by Psychology Today found that writers who kept things simple with basic outlines were 30% less likely to experience mental fatigue. So, if you're prone to overthinking your plot, simplifying it to the basics can clear your mind and keep your creativity flowing. Another great benefit: it allows you to stay flexible. You'll be able to adapt your story as it develops naturally, without feeling like you're locked into a rigid plan. Remember, a blueprint isn't a rulebook, it's a suggestion. If your story takes a left turn, that's okay. Follow the flow, and you'll discover that your characters lead the way. Chapter 3: Find your anchor, the one thing that drives your story. At this point, you've got your basic outline down. Now, let's focus on finding your story's anchor, the one thing that drives the narrative forward. This is the emotional core, the key event, or the big idea that your entire novel revolves around. Think of it as your story's compass. It helps you keep track of where you're headed, even when things get chaotic. In The Hero's Journey, Joseph Campbell talks about the call to adventure, a pivotal moment that changes everything for the protagonist. This call is your anchor. It's what your characters are striving toward, what's at stake, and the emotional hook that draws readers in. For example, in The Hunger Games, Katniss's call to adventure is her sister's life. This is the driving force behind the entire series. Finding your anchor doesn't mean you need to have everything figured out right away. Sometimes, it's as simple as asking, what does my protagonist want most? This central desire will help you craft the rest of your story. Once you know what your character is reaching for, it's easier to throw in obstacles and twists that feel purposeful, not random. A little research can also help. According to a study by the Writer's Digest, 42% of successful pantser authors start their writing process by identifying the emotional stakes first, not the plot. This reveals that focusing on the emotional drive behind the story can often be more powerful than focusing on plot details. Remember, your anchor is what will keep you motivated throughout the writing process. It's a constant reminder of why you're telling this story in the first place. And, as the story unfolds, this anchor may change or evolve, but having it in place gives you something to cling to, no matter how messy the writing gets. If you're finding these tips helpful, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more writing advice and tips. Chapter 4. Characters are your plot. Let them lead the way. One of the biggest secrets to writing without a strict outline is learning to let your characters take over. If you focus on developing deep, complex characters, you'll find that the plot practically writes itself. When you know who your characters are and what they want, their actions can guide the direction of your story. After all, characters drive the plot. They make the decisions, create conflict, and lead the narrative forward. In fact, a 2017 study by the Journal of Writing Research found that novels with well-developed characters are 40% more likely to keep readers engaged. The more you understand your characters' motivations and desires, the more naturally they will move the plot along. Remember, your protagonist should want something so badly that they're willing to risk everything for it. What's at stake? What are they willing to sacrifice? These questions will help you understand how your character reacts to the twists and turns of your story. Take J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter series as an example. The plot didn't just unfold because of a series of events, it happened because Harry was driven by his need to uncover the truth about his parents' death. Every major plot twist tied into this central motivation. The more you allow your characters' inner desires and struggles to shape the events around them, the more authentic and compelling your story will feel. A key strategy here is to let your characters make decisions, even when you don't know what's going to happen next. If you've built your characters well, they'll guide you in the right direction. Instead of plotting every detail, focus on putting your characters into situations where their choices shape the outcome. The plot will follow naturally, and you'll avoid the rigid constraints of a typical outline. Chapter 5. The Scene Map. Building your novel's skeleton without the stress. Now that you're comfortable letting your characters lead the way, it's time to bring some structure back into the process, without the stress of an overwhelming outline. Enter the scene map, a simple, flexible tool that lets you sketch out key moments in your story. This method gives you a skeletal framework, making sure you don't get lost, but doesn't box you into a rigid structure. A scene map isn't a detailed outline. Instead, you list the major scenes you envision, without worrying about every plot point in between. Think of it as a rough roadmap that helps you stay on track while still allowing for plenty of freedom. According to the Writer's Digest, 58% of successful novelists use this method, making it a great choice for pantsers looking to add a little more structure without feeling restricted. Each scene on your map should have a clear goal. What's happening in this moment? What does the protagonist want to achieve? The beauty of the scene map is that it doesn't require you to know every detail in advance. You just need to identify the key moments that will move the story forward. If you're stuck, simply add another scene that pushes the action forward. You can always adjust as you go. Let's look at the Hunger Games again. Suzanne Collins didn't have every battle or plot twist planned in advance. Instead, she used a scene map to ensure that every scene contributed to the overarching goal, Katniss's survival. From there, the story unfolded naturally, scene by scene. So, if you're a pantser, This is the perfect way to maintain direction while still embracing creativity. The real beauty of the scene map is that it helps you avoid the dreaded feeling of being stuck. You'll know where your story is headed next, but you don't have to worry about plotting every tiny detail in advance. As you continue writing, you can tweak your map, adding new scenes or rearranging them. The process is flexible, so you won't feel like you're boxed in. If you're enjoying this video and want to learn more about writing strategies, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon. Chapter 6: No Rules, Just Write. Navigating the chaos with confidence. The final strategy in your pantser-friendly novel writing toolkit is to simply embrace the mess. Writing isn't a perfectly planned, step-by-step process. It's a journey full of surprises and detours. If you're trying to write a perfect novel from start to finish, you'll get frustrated. The truth is, great stories aren't made by following a strict set of rules. They're created by allowing your imagination to roam free. Famous author Neil Gaiman once said, "The world always seems brighter when you've just made something that wasn't there before." That's what writing is all about, creating something from nothing. And sometimes that means letting go of the need for control. The more you try to force a story into a neat little box, the more you'll lose touch with the very creativity that makes your novel unique. Research supports this approach, too. A study by the National Endowment for the Arts found that writers who allow their stories to unfold naturally are more likely to produce work that resonates with readers. This is because raw creativity, not perfectionism, leads to emotional depth and authenticity. By letting your characters and your imagination take the lead, you're more likely to connect with your audience on a deeper level. If you feel overwhelmed by the lack of a rigid plan, remind yourself that storytelling doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to be authentic. Take risks, try new things, and don't be afraid of making mistakes. In fact, some of the best stories come from unexpected twists and turns. Think about how many famous authors, like Stephen King, started their novels without knowing exactly how they would end. The excitement of discovery is what makes writing so fulfilling. Ultimately, the key to writing a great novel isn't in following a prescribed set of rules, it's in trusting yourself. Trust that your creativity will guide you through the process. Whether you're an experienced pantser or just starting out, embrace the chaos, let your characters lead, and navigate your story with confidence. The best novels are the ones that break free from convention and embrace the unpredictability of the writing journey. Remember to subscribe and stay tuned for more tips to help you write your best novel.